This video will be explaining the speedrun route of the current Immortal Severance ending no Airswim world record of 36 minutes and 41 seconds by me. The no Airswim rule set is pretty simple. All glitches are fair game except the Airswim glitch. This run is performed on version 102, which is the oldest public release for the PC version. The reason we play on the old patch is that the early monkeys glitch was patched in 103. This glitch is a crucial part of the route that will come up later. For now, we're headed towards Kuro. During the intro tutorial and a few other specific parts of the game, you are not able to sprint. Therefore, we will be jumping to move slightly faster. Speaking to Kuro here is mandatory in order to exit the tutorial area. We disable subtitles to enable a technique called dialogue skipping. This allows us to exit out of dialogue sequences early while still setting the internal checkpoint for the dialogue being completed. This will be used a ton throughout the run and adds up to around a minute of time save. To finish off the tutorial segment, we will be picking up 2 fistfuls of ash and thereafter taking an intentional L to tutorial Genichiro to proceed faster. Since the next couple of minutes is mainly running, let's go over the requirements for the Immortal Severance ending. Severing Kuro's ties to immortality is achieved by giving Kuro the Divine Dragon's tears after defeating the final boss, Sword Saint Ishin. The tears are a key item dropped by the Divine Dragon, who resides beyond the Fountainhead Palace. Fountainhead is first reachable after having lit the incense. For that ritual, we need to collect a set of items: the Mortal Blade, the Shelter Stone, the Lotus of the Palace, and the Aromatic Branch. We also have to kill Genichiro, otherwise we cannot trigger Owl's invasion event, which would halt progress. The Owl invasion will happen after killing Genichiro and getting the 3 first key items. It's important that Genichiro is killed before obtaining the Mortal Blade, because after killing Genichiro, we will need to do some dialogue, which includes asking Ishin in his tower about the Mortal Blade's location. If this is not done before getting it, then Kuro will bug out and soft lock the ending. I know that this is a lot of information to process. Don't feel pressure to remember everything. I'll be updating you as we make progress towards achieving the ending. And before we are able to do so, we need to reach Ashina Castle. Ashina Castle branches out to all the other areas that contain the key items we need to collect to advance. Coming up is the first skip of the run, Ogre Skip. Ogre Skip makes use of a delayed jump. By jumping at the very moment you fall off the ledge, you gain extra distance. In this case, there's around a 1 frame window for the jump. Usually Ogre Skip can be a significant early reset point. Making our way towards the canyon area. There are some gunners we need to avoid. I try to time the jump with when the gunner on the high ground fires his shot, in hopes that if his shot were to hit me, the invincibility frames from jumping would save me. To the left here is a very hard skip called Double Canyon that is usually featured in many world records. In my attempts, I had decided not to go for it because it creates too many resets for only around 7 seconds of time save. This is one of the optimizations that could hopefully bring the time down even lower in the future. I still do the single canyon to jump across the gap and avoid the slow wall hugging. I immediately run to the left after the tent to dodge the snake. Exiting the canyon, we pick up a gachin for later use. Up next is the first real boss in the game, Gyobu. Before meeting him, we pick up another 2 fistfuls of ash. We're going to be skipping him by jumping up this tower and performing a delayed jump off the roof. This one is much less precise than Ogre Skip, but can still be problematic if you take the wrong angle. Immediately to the right, over this wall, there is an enemy that we need to kill in order to complete a side quest. After getting the ledge grab, we make sure we pull ourselves up from the ledge grab. If you jump up instead, the rats will hear you and turn around before you can get the backstab. We then backstab the rat and keep running. We do an awkward little jump here to draw aggro from a dog below. At this point, Gyobu is still running around in his arena. However, he's about to run off the edge, as we move far enough away to despawn the barrier that would normally prevent him from doing so. Then go grab the attention of some more guards before getting lined up for our next skip. Bull skip. With a well-timed wall jump, we can make it around this invisible wall and land out of bounds. At this point, I should explain why we have been trying to aggro enemies. You might have heard of the term unstable ground in relation to speedruns of FromSoft games. Well, this exists in Sekiro as well, but with the quirk that being in combat counts as being on unstable ground. So after properly aggroing the bull, making sure he comes up to the gate so we don't lose his attention while getting the idol, we quit out. After reloading the save, the game is going to put Wolf back in his last stable position. How this works is that Wolf's last stable position is not updated when inside a boss arena or when inside combat. So by chaining that together, we can teleport back by just quitting out. This is referred to as an aggro chain. The reason we needed to do all that was so that we could speak to this guy, Tengu. Talking to him is mandatory to meet Ishin in his tower in Ashina Castle later. We also accept his quest, because by backstabbing the rat earlier, we already completed it and can take the reward on the spot. The reward is the Ashina skill book, which contains two very potent skills, Ascending Carp and Descending Carp. These abilities boost your damage on deflects and counterattacks by 25%. We also go back and get the Shinobi skill book as well, which lets us unlock Mikiri counter and mid-air combat arts. Mid-air combat arts will be used for glitch later. Now that we have reached Ashina Castle, we make the first major routing choice, which is to head to Senpo. The main boss of the Senpo temple are the folding screen monkeys, which is a boss that does not depend on your attack power. And at this point in the run, we are very weak. On the way, we pick up a bag of 500 sen and use it to buy contact medicine. This will be used for a skip later in the run. As I said, we are very weak at the moment, still sitting at 1 attack power, but we have the Gyobu memory in our inventory. The reason we haven't used it yet is so that it can be expended together with the monkey's memory to reduce menuing time. We won't need the damage until after. As we drop into the water, we will try our best to not get spotted by any of the guards. At the end of the tunnel is an elevator. It moves down very slowly, and therefore we want to quit out to make it move down faster. But if we just ran past and did the elevator quit out, the guards would see us and we would be put back via an aggro chain. So we need to not get spotted. The guys on the left at the start here are no problem, but the guys at the end of the tunnel, especially the gunner, can be rather tricky. We're going to do an AI manipulation that abuses the fact that enemies call for backup after spotting the player. When an enemy receives the call for backup, he will turn yellow and start investigating, swiveling his head back and forth. In this case, there's a fish around the corner which we will aggro to make the gunner start investigating and turn his attention away from where we will exit the water. Clumsily, I fucked up the jump, so I couldn't make it behind the corner before he turns his head back. While we are in the menu, we equip some items that we need to use in the near future. Something to mention is that the fish are not able to start an aggro chain, therefore they are a perfect candidate for the sneaky AI manipulation we did. As you can see, because I got spotted by the gunner, I got teleported back a little and lost a bit of time, again due to the aggro chain mechanic. We're now headed into the Senpo area. I'll be doing some attacks to time my jump to get out of the elevator as early as possible. We brush up against this poster to interrupt the Divine Child's dialogue, because while scripted dialogue is playing, you are not able to interact with objects. We pick up the idol as we have to come back here later. You might ask why we chose to go to Senpo first, since the folding screen monkeys are guarding the mortal blade, and that I specifically said that you have to kill Genichiro and talk to Ishin about the mortal blade before actually obtaining it. Well, the plan is to kill the monkeys and then backtrack later for the mortal blade. This might sound slow, but the monkeys drop more than just a memory. They drop the puppeteer ninjutsu, which together with the idol we picked up at the start of Senpo, this upcoming idol, and the contact medicine we bought earlier, it enables a humongous skip. But first things first, we need to actually reach the monkeys. You're about to see why this run is performed on the old patch. You see, when you go fight the monkeys normally, you would interact with a bell that would teleport you into their arena. But there's a more direct route you can take. It just so happens that the arena is placed directly below Senpo. So by doing some cheeky parkouring, we are able to get out of bounds and fall directly on top of the arena. We catch a grapple to prevent dying from the fall. Then use the Gachin sugar we equipped earlier to not get spotted. We'll go backstab the green monkey sitting in the tree first. Then grapple up and backstab the orange monkey. Turn around and dash hit to get the invisible monkey. This guy follows you around, so by taking this path, he will always be there after we kill his orange friend. Lastly, we'll take out the purple monkey, who is sitting on top of this rooftop. We have to go behind because he has supervision and will spot us instantly if we approach from the front. Now that we have killed the monkeys, we can access the mortal blade. However, we won't pick it up just yet. So instead we will beeline to the idol. When we load in, we get the puppeteer ninjutsu unlocked. We'll also equip that. At the idol, we'll spend the Gyobu memory and Monkey's memory to upgrade attack power from 1 to 3. We'll also unlock Mikiri counter, ascending carp and descending carp, and buy some spirit emblems. Then travel back to the first idol of Senpo. There are a few scripted scenarios where an enemy will do something unique when puppeteered. In this case, there's a rat that will man the handle that raises the kite out over the cliff. This kite can be grappled to reach the Sunken Valley Cavern, where you'd normally go later in the game to say hi to the snake. However, we will be using the kite slightly differently. Because it's time for the humongous skip. We teleport back to the idol we picked up before monkeys and use contact medicine. Contact medicine will slowly lower our health over the course of 40 seconds. And it was discovered semi-recently that Wolf's dead body does not lose momentum while in the air. This led to this skip getting discovered by Omnic. We also drop off the edge twice to lower our health even more and time the grapple with when we die. Now we're in the Sunken Valley. From here we can access the Guardian Ape, who guards the Lotus of the Palace. We can also go down below, through the Serpent's Cave, to get to Mibu Village, where the corrupted monk guards the Shelter Stone. We do an aggro chain here, so we can both take the idol before Ape, and get teleported back over near the Serpent's Cave, to go do corrupted monk for the Shelter Stone, and come back later here for the Lotus. This saves having to run all the way back where we landed. You might have noticed that when we quit out, the timer sometimes rolls back. This is due to the fact that the game does not store milliseconds in the save file. Furthermore, when we quit out, the timer keeps counting for around 0.56 seconds after the time has actually been saved. So when reloading the save file, LiveSplit will read and display the correct number again with milliseconds removed. This is a massive simplification of how it actually works. You can read more about the community sanctioned timer on its GitHub page. We do a little maneuver to get past the snake without having to distract him with the puppeteered monkey. As we make our way up towards the poison pool, which is the next step on the journey down to the corrupted monk, we pick up some divine confetti for later use. To get past this area, we need to kill Snake Eyes. We'll sneak up behind her for a stealth death blow, then use an Akko. We want to push her in the direction of the fog wall. Mid-fight, we turn around and look at the gunner on the high ground to reset her detection meter and prevent her from seeing us. During the fight, we employ something called dead angles. By starting an attack while facing away from the enemy doesn't receive a signal that it needs to guard. We use this to get repeated free hits on Snake Eyes and stagger her out of any attacks without hyper armor. Because we haven't defeated the Guardian Ape yet, the second encounter that would normally be here is not present. It should be noted that this is actually intended, even though we took a crazy route to get here in the name of speed. You can take a fully skipless path and get the same result. As we enter the hidden forest, we run past the cock and pick up some Yashiriku sugar. We also pick up 3 snap seeds. In this next fight, I was unsure if I should have made a joke about it being the hardest part of the run. But instead, I'll highlight that I got this setup for the tree jump from the runner Shaoxi Jason. In Sekiro speedrunning, many strats and pathings are shared between different categories. I say this because Jason mainly plays Shura glitchless, and that's where I saw his setup. I think that Immortal Severance No Airswim is the one that has the least similarities to other runs, which makes it really interesting, but also kinda weird. Many categories are almost identical for the first 20 minutes, but this category stands out already 6 minutes in by being the only run that accepts Tengu's quest. When glancing over the route, it can seem like a lot of unnecessary steps are taken, but in reality, it is just different. Now that we've had a little chat about the speedrun landscape and greeted the friendly locals of Mibu Village, we're approaching the corrupted monk, where we'll get our first key item for the incense ritual. I know it's 16 minutes in and we haven't collected any, but remember, we already got the idol by Ape guarding the Lotus and the idol by Mortal Blade, which we can go back and collect very swiftly. We're going to menu a bit. Something to note is that on the old patch, item menuing can be done a lot faster than on newer patches, because the developers added in a cooldown time for how fast you can press buttons inside the inventory. We now enter the Corrupted Monk's boss arena. She isn't spawned in yet, because we are purposefully taking a path that triggers the fight as late as possible, so we can get closer and stay out of sight. At this point, we will be completely behind her cone of vision when we trigger the fight. So we'll trigger the fight, precisely use 3 snap seeds and 4 ash to make her stagger backwards, then we'll perform a jump off the pillar and execute her with a stealth death blow. We pick up the idol as we need to use it later when we want to access the Fountainhead Palace. Then we'll go pick up the Shelter Stone. We use the Homeward Idol to travel to the latest idol to save having to run back. It is quite a bit faster due to loading time not being counted. We then upgrade attack power and travel back to Ashina Castle. We're gonna go fight Genichiro. I know I just said that we're gonna go get the rest of the key items, but this way we will have to travel one less time. It will become apparent after why. Making our way up the castle, we're going to do front side dojo skip, which lets us directly into the Genichiro fight from the front. This skips having to take a massive trip through the Ashina Castle dojo. Facing off against Genichiro, we're going to abuse dead angles yet again. We start off by sprinting directly past him, using confetti and baiting him into the corner. There we will make sure all our attacks are pointed away from him, so he can't defend. Since every hit is a body hit, he will continuously get staggered out of any attack he could do. The confetti speeds the kill up a lot. And if it wasn't obvious, dying isn't required here. The reason I turn on the 5th hit is that Wolf's 5th attack has a slightly different hitbox, and if you don't change its direction, it will not connect. The attack is still a dead angle because I first turn to face him after the attack has started. At the start of phase 3, I will run back, use a Yash and catch Genny's thrust attack with Mikiri. Then we just pray for him to throw lightning. Reversing lightning deals a massive amount of damage. Ideally we would get 2 lightnings back to back and he would die without being able to fight back. Here we got a bit of a late lightning. I'll try to line up a jump that can sometimes make the cutscene play a bit faster. It might save a frame if you're lucky. Now it's dialogue time. Because we don't have access to the Airswim glitch, which would let us airswim directly to the end of the game, we need to set all the checkpoints along the way. I'll be using dialogue skip yet again to minimize time spent talking to the NPCs. Going to the watchtower, we finally talk to Ishin, after which we can safely pick up the mortal blade without soft locking. Note, if we hadn't spoken to Tengu in the area by Gyobu, Ishin would not be here. After finishing all the dialogue, we go back for the mortal blade. We're now only missing the Lotus of the Palace before the Owl invasion can take place, which we will go to procure after changing some items around, equipping the Mortal Blade, and upgrading attack power. We're going to be skipping the Guardian Ape. If you were expecting an epic boss battle with the big monkey, which, to be fair, I don't think is possible. This boss is a massive wanker. But if you genuinely were, then yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to sprint off the edge and wall jump to make it out of bounds. I mess it up a bit, but we can recover by quitting out. Because the Ape's arena counts as unstable ground, we will be placed back at the top when loading back in. Landing out of bounds, we will be running across a very narrow surface with some random holes in it. Sometimes there are even walls that obstruct the path, which we need to jump around. It seems the ape finally woke up and realized we're about to nick his flower. Too bad he can't reach us. Sometimes he can throw poop though, which can sometimes hit you. The camera gets really weird here, so I slow down a bit. We move around a bit to be able to pick up the Lotus through the wall. And with that, we have collected all items needed for Owl to invade Ashina Castle. This will in turn set our last idol to be the abandoned dungeon idol as a failsafe, because all Ashina Castle idols have been reset due to the world state changing. This is how we end up saving having to travel an extra time, as I mentioned earlier. Believe it or not, all the complex routing is now over. The final 13 minutes of the run is extremely linear, but that doesn't mean it's easier. Especially the endgame, starting around when we enter Fountainhead Palace, can easily swallow a really amazing pace. You can be minutes ahead and with slight inaccuracy be left with no option but to start over. Before we really get to that part though, we have to fight Owl and light the incense. Owl presents us with the option of obeying the Iron Code. This would lock us into the shorter, surer ending. Because we are running Immortal Severance, we have to betray him, or else we will not be able to achieve the correct ending. Owl will meet a similar fate to Genichiro. We trap him in the corner and wipe out his HP bar with confetti boosted dead angled attacks. I didn't get to cover this during the Genichiro fight, but Divine Confetti only boosts your HP damage. In Sekiro, you can kill enemies in two ways, by depleting their health or their posture. Since we will only be getting body hits, and would be killing the boss with HP damage anyway, the confetti saves a large amount of time. We have to run back a bit to not get memed by his phase transition shockwave. After he has slammed the ground, we run up and continue the door chase. Now that we have killed Owl and obtained the aromatic branch, we have everything needed to light the incense. We'll start by speaking to Kuro. After getting Okami's ancient text, we need to talk to Emma. She will appear when we reload the area, so we quit out to reload it. Three quick talks is the most efficient way to get the dialogue done. Talk to Kuro one more time, and like that, we can light the incense. Lighting the incense gives us access to the Fountainhead Palace through the Wedding Cave, the place where we fought Corrupted Monk. Before we leave, we will upgrade attack power, unlock mid-air combat arts, and Shinobi Eyes. Shinobi Eyes massively increases the damage our Mikiri counter does. This is super useful against the final boss. Mid-air combat arts allows the use of Mortal Draw mid-air. Mortal Draw was unlocked when we picked up the Mortal Blade, and if you're familiar with its normal OP status in speedruns, you might be confused as to why I haven't used it yet. The reason is that it's actually kinda bad on the old patch. On 103, FromSoft rebalanced a lot of the combat arts, most notably by increasing the damage of Mortal Draw a lot. Now it's still worth using, but only with mid-air combat arts, because the MD is bugged to deal the damage of a fully charged, empowered MD when done mid-air. We have now reached the Vermilion Bridge. Guarding it is the true Corrupted Monk. She seems to have stayed at home today though, so we'll just run past. Let's view that again. Entering the arena, we grapple up to the first branch. From here, we want to stay as high as possible, taking every grapple before we lose any height at all. If we do lose height, we will dip into the monk's trigger box and make her spawn in early, which will cause the fog wall to appear and block our way. You might notice that Fountainhead is looking a little different. Because the monk is still alive, the fog hasn't been removed yet. We can still make progress through the area, but it's a bit harder to see where you're going. We're going to swim past the majority of Fountainhead. However, as soon as we start swimming in the water, Okami Leader will start throwing lightning at us. It is crucial to have the right timing for the dive, so that you can avoid her lightning by just spamming dash underwater. The timing is tighter than it might seem, because the underwater dashes do not give any sort of iframes. You have to fully rely on the dash moving you out of the way. Here I sit at the top by this roof, so the great carp will miss me. Despite the visibility problems, we seem to have made it onto the palace grounds. We're about to fight the Divine Dragon. At this point in the run, we're sitting at 6 attack power, which is 2 less than you would normally have on a glitchless run, because we did not kill Guardian Ape and True Monk. As you can see in the top left, the game still thinks we're fighting the monk. This will lead to problems during the dragon fight. Therefore, we quit out to fix it. What will happen if you don't do the quit out is that the first grapple you need to take in the fight will not be usable. We're very near the end of the run, only 2 bosses left. Going into the fight, we use a Divine Confetti. The actual dragon fight is preceded by a lot of small dragons that share an HP bar. With the confetti, we try and kill as many as we can before the grapple spawns in. When jump deathblowing the small dragons, we're able to swing their bodies around to kill other nearby enemies. In total, we need to kill 25 old dragons for the actual dragon fight to start. At the start, the dragon will always use his gust attack to knock you back. From here, the two possible openers are sweep attack and triple vertical slam. The vertical is best because we can sneak in an early MD. We use Yash and go to MD his neck. I try to use up all my emblems before taking the lightning, because after you start throwing lightning at him, he can do the gust again and blow us away, which we don't want. We have to get a little lucky here, because lightnings are on a set spawn timer and unfortunately they can spawn on top of each other, but will still only give you one use. We need 3 lightning to finish off the dragon. We now enter the final phase. Here we just have to dodge his attacks until he gives us 1 final lightning to finish the fight and collect his tears. After taking the final lightning, we hold forward while falling down to be able to get the grapple. Curiously, if you don't do that, then the grapple just will not work. Before going to the final boss, we need to get the key to his arena from Emma. I'm about to attempt the double door skip, which allows skipping opening the large door leading to Ashina Reservoir, where the final boss is. I missed the jump and have to take the slower path where you have to open an extra door on top of the big double door. Before the final boss, we upgrade attack power. I know we haven't had a lot of boss fights so far in the run, but making up for all of that is the final boss, Sword Saint Ishin. This fight is the most complicated and possibly also most difficult part of the run. The Ishin fight itself is preceded by Genichiro, Way of Tomo. Before triggering the fight, we use a Yashiriku Sugar. At the very start of the fight, we use the Healing Gourd to bait Genichiro into doing a Frost attack. This works every time and will let us get a few free hits in while he is doing his big black Mortal Blade attack. Now that Geni is dead, it's time for Ishin. We use another Yash and deflect his attack. We then sidestep his Ichimonji because deflecting it often leads to very unfavorable patterns. Shinobi Eyes is doing a lot of heavy lifting here with the increased Mikiri damage. Entering the second phase, we will do yet another technique that has been patched out. The spear skip. By being super aggressive and never giving Ishin a moment to idle, you can prevent him from pulling out the spear in the second phase. This is quite favorable because he does way more attacks that are deflectable with his phase 1 moveset. Regardless, we will have to let him pull out the spear for the final phase, or else he will bug out. But that's okay, because there we have the lightnings for big chunks of damage. As he's pulling out his spear, we will use our final Yash, dodge a stomp, hit 4 times and MD him. We saved all our emblems for the final phase, because he has some moves we want to interrupt, and he can sometimes just stand there awkwardly, pissing away the time and recovering posture. The big sweep we jump over and use MD. One more MD and he's dead. The time will end when the credits appear after giving Kuru the Divine Dragon's Tears to trigger the Immortal Severance ending. I want to thank you a lot for watching. This style of video is something I haven't tried before, but been wanting to do for a while. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback about how I can improve. My hope is that I can feature other people's runs in the same format, so that I don't have to go get a new world record every time I want to make a video. I'd also like to point your attention to the fact that Mitres has begun doing attempts of this category with the goal of setting a new world record. As for myself, I'm moving back to glitchless. It's really something I've been missing, and after 3 months of playing exclusively no Airswim, I think it's time for a break. But who knows? Maybe I'll be back if my record is beaten. You can find me live at twitch.tv/holm_gg. Thank you so much for watching.